7 o'clock, and we're gonna get started, and I'll call the meeting to order for the tax reinvestment financing reinvestment number one board of directors meeting for May 28th, 2025. And first item on the agenda is to administer the random boson. You're right behind me, Brandon.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Brandon Boson.
I, Brandon Boson, do solemnly swear
That I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of RC board member
of the office of RZ board member
of the state of
to the state of Texas
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of the state.
and of the state.
So,
So help me God.
Okay, next item, public comments. Everyone's signed up. Nothing. Okay, thank you. Next item, consider approval of minutes for the meeting held on March 6th, 2025. Minutes were distributed. For motion, second, please. Okay, Lacey. Any discussion? Not all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Next item is the regular agenda. Number 3, receive current project updates and possible future projects include but not limited to: A, review of current projects under construction; B, review of projects in design; and C, review of future projects. I'm gonna turn it over to John Keelan and David Patrick to fill those out.
Mr. Chairman, on the, we have 3 updates and then 3 voting items woven into this presentation. Was hoping maybe we could just vote on each of the 5, 6, and 7 when they come up.
Perfect.
That'd be okay with you. First one is just an update on the outer loop north. If you've been out there, it's really going good. David's got a great video of the progress up there. Lots of green grass. Anything in particular, David, you want to tell us about the update on this?
Yeah, with all of these projects, the weather has not been friendly lately, but we do appreciate the rain, so we're not gonna complain. We are down to our last beam set and have been in that position for a little while. It does require coordination with BN, and we've been working on that. We've had it scheduled 2 or 3 times, but we cannot set the beams in bad weather or rainy weather. So you'll see on the video here in a second where we're missing 1 span. Good news is it is set for this week, or scheduled for this week. So we're hopeful that we get that in. Of course, we got rain in forecast as well. With our last change order, we're to June of 2026 completion. And the really great news on this one is we are getting very, very close to being out of the ground. We're excavating and placing our last pieces of storm sewer to the west. And generally on all these projects, once we get out of the ground, things start going pretty quick.
Any question on North Loop? Second item is the downtown city center, which is also really progressive, great. The main portion of it is almost complete. And this was the actual schematic of it was released. We are now moving into 4th Street, going to be done in 2 phases. The yellow, which will at least get being able to get into Bird Creek and to access the businesses along there. And then in the red, the plans are done for the section. If you remember, we're taking 4th Street down to Avenue A, picking up all that drainage. I do believe that phase will be held off until after the Tanglefoot concert, just to keep some flow. So, you know, unfortunately for the people in that area, that we're gonna have to hold that thing off for about 4 months until that festival is over, but that will be progressing. And again, in some videos, David, any updates you want on this?
Yeah, we're getting really close to opening Central back, get it back open. We held off to pave the alleys that's between 2nd and 4th Street. We did have some dry utilities that we had to coordinate with there. That's complete now. And paving's ongoing. Of course, weather's catching them as well. But if you go down there, you'll see that like the landscaping in front of the planters is complete now. This video is probably 30 days old. But we're very excited about the way this came out and the way that everything kind of tied together. The landscaping turned out great. So I'm hoping we're a week and a half, 2 weeks away from opening up Central. If you go down near Bird Creek and 4th Street area, you'll see that that's in progress now. So we're making really good progress on it, and that completion date is end of July.
Any questions, City Center? All right, third item is, the Crossroads Master Plan. We've got two parks that we are gonna be working with Covey and KPA on updating the master plans. One is Crossroads, mainly really looking at, taking some of this area and getting some more detail. This is the land that we voted on the last meeting to have it, cleared so that we can begin to really get a good idea what we're gonna do in that area and how we're connecting into some of the developments to the north. Also the Wilson Park, you remember we bought the land to the north that give us a new entryway and really just gonna do a brush over and really do an update to this whole plan. I've been talking quite a bit about this in our master planning also, just to really make this park as good as Crossroads. This is a voting item. That's number 4 on our agenda. And that is for Covey to do both of the updates for 233,000. You want to read that?
Yeah, it's actually agenda item number 5.
Oops, sorry. We moved one in.
Yeah. Anyway,
My fault.
I have a question for you, David. When did they gonna start work on the Crossroad clearing?
So it's gone through council and we're just waiting on contract execution and we'll get that going.
Okay.
I will follow up with the city on where we are with bonds and execution. And hopefully very quickly, and that should go fast. That should go pretty quick.
I'll read in, okay. Consider recommending to City Council authorize professional services agreement with Covey Planning with landscape architecture to develop a master plan for Crossroads Park and James Wilson Park in the amount not to exceed 233,000. Move for approval with a second. Second, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Next item is over in our North Industrial Park. We talked about this quite a bit, having to upsize that sewer line, both for the expansions that Niagara has been doing and actually getting it prepared for any future needs on Site 64, which is the site to the east of Niagara and where SEA is going. We are doing a small portion of that dollar amount. If you remember, the total cost of this project is close to $3,932 is the zone portion. And this will allow us to let the public works get the casing underneath the railroad, and that's for $81,000. And that does come on with the $932,000 of the zones portion of that project.
If you have any questions on that, we'll read in.
You can see it's really right there at the railroad, that yellow line, they're gonna use just the casing there and blow through it.
It's actually item number 6, consider a recommendation to the council authorizing protection contracts with Vortex Services LLC of Houston for the construction of Northwest Little Elm wastewater upsizing, railroad casing lining in the estimated amount of $81,038.
Move for approval.
Okay, motion, second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Next item is for the Santa Fe Community Center. As you get down there, there's a whole bunch of work with the right builders. It's really getting right on top of it, even though there's weather. This is what it is gonna look like when it is completed. Again, making a nice community market. This is the 4th change order for this project, and it is for the roof. Really, decision was made a couple months ago for us to replace that roof and allow that to be used for warehousing space. This is the fourth change order. The first one was the original VE and taking down the old building. If you remember, we were going to use it and decided to take it down, so we had a change order there. Second change order was for the inlet structure that was made out of wood. And so we passed that so that we could take care of the wood structure. And when they took the wood structure out, they found out the whole drainage head was made out of railroad ties. That was the third one. So this is the fourth in that project. And should get us pretty close to the finish line, hopefully. Again, we're just getting that roof structure on the building. We knew when we released this project that that roof was really bad. It was called out on the plan that it was bad and we were just going to board the building up. And since then, I've really decided that it's worth using this as some warehouse space and maybe move out of the buildings that we had done close to the MLK. So again, this is agenda item number 7, and it is the change order 4 with Wright Builders for $134,687. Answer any questions?
Need to abstain.
Proposed use for the warehouse, will that be like leased out to private side, or is, you said we'll move out?
Probably not portion of that would really be a good errand question on exactly how they're gonna program the whole thing. I think we're just using that warehouse for now, right?
Right, just some storage right now.
We have a really nice building down there across from the Sun Glow. We redid both of those buildings and they've been using it for warehouse. I think this will allow us to take some of the staging things that they have for the festivals. And just a good place to store junk that would throw it out. Everybody had one
For
of
the
those.
market as well. Yeah, some tents.
Thank you.
Okay. And item number 7, consider recommendation of the city council authorizing change order number 4 to the construction contract with Light Rivers Temple for Santa Fe Community Market, an estimated amount of $134,687.
Motion.
And do I have a second? Second, Lacy. Discussion?
Can I ask, before Manglefoot, how far along will you be, Steve?
It's,
Close?
well, this moved the completion date with the days added for this deal into December. So it's not gonna be substantially complete, but it won't be landscaped and things of that nature. And so, it'll be 3/4 of the way finished, but not, I don't think in a usable state. We're certainly willing to work with the city in whatever measure you'd like to try to accommodate that, and we can make it safe and understand the importance of the festival and all that sort of thing, but it's not gonna be finished.
Thank you.
So,
The rain's really helping you out too.
yeah,
It's a little video of where he is. Particularly, you can see that dirt trench along where they had to take out the railroad ties. Building to the left is the new roof. Where the new roof will be.
it's gonna be a really nice project completed, and this shores up the entire structure where you get the whole building in really good shape.
Moving to.
Wait just a second, no, I read in item number 7, we need to,
Motion and second, but no vote.
yeah, right, right. So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
And number 7 is the Lorraine Drive, Milton the boat on, just an update, anything to give us here, David?
Yeah, we're getting really close. Weather's hurt this one as well. We've had the last run of paving scheduled twice now. If the weather holds off today, we'll pave the last surface course run this morning. And that's really all we like besides striping and signage. So we are very, very close to completing this one. will be complete in June. I have that walkthrough, and then this one will be, complete tied in from Panda Drive all the way to Bob White.
Bunch of green grass, we won't be seeing that for much longer. That's the end of the actual project updates.
We're gonna move into item number 4. Need to discuss a presentation update on the 2050 reinvestment zone #1 master plan. The master, just remind everybody, the master plan committee that's been working on this now since March of last year. Tom Pila, Howard Johnson, Will Harvey, and Jessica and myself, and then city staff, city manager, assistant city manager, finance director, all been getting meeting for, again, the last 12 to 18 months. And John will show you, we've had presentations from over 40 organizations to help us out in crafting this, and then we're moving forward to identifying projects, and the goal is to have this published and put together by the end of the year.
We have settled into this logo as a team of 250 by 2050. One of the things as we started meeting with all of the various people was just this population thought. It's really where we began our thinking of like, what are we really preparing ourselves for? And we're looking at 2050. What does Temple look like in 2050? And it was really a lot of our discussion early on. We had a bunch of meetings, government-wise. We met with multiple city Temple. We met with SitCog, the police, fire department. As far as transportation, we met with TxDOT and Gate Temple, Henderson Transportation Group, a research group that the city is working for all their busing and various deal. The airport group, Patriot Rail, BNSF. That was all our transportation. We met with the health sciences, which was Baylor College of Medicine, Baylor Scott and White, the Bioscience District, and the VA hospital. Our educational group, we met with TISD, VISD, Troy Academy, Temple College, Texas A&M, Central Texas, Zonda, who does all of the reporting for most of the schools in the area, and we'll be doing some additional upgrades to the population projections, and UMHB. We dealt with some water resources groups with the Brazos River Authority, Clearwater, Underground Water Conservation District, Pendleton, Atmos, Encore. And we met with the civic group, which is cultural activities, Temple Civic Theater and the Children's Museum. Economic development, we met with the state economic development and tourism group. We met with Bell County, TEDC, workforce, the state's economic development council, and had some input from Belton EDC, but not an actual formal meeting. So all in all, we met with 45 stakeholders. So some of these were 2 in a day, some in 3, but you can see that a considerable number of meetings. There really was a theme that came as we were meeting with each one of these, that every single one of these entities was dealing with the growth of the area, the growth in the city of Temple. And the theme really came pretty strong is how does each one of these entities deal with a fast growing area? And it was interesting, besides their own individual plans and that, well, we really felt that a theme started coming through on that. We spent a considerable amount of time trying to determine what area we were going to use to do our planning. So we went through multiple renditions of a planning map. And you can see that black line that is circled around there. We came up with that being our area. And really the theme here was when you're looking at that map, the colors are the stuff to the left is the Belton school system. To the north, it's mainly Troy. Going to the east, you've got Rogers, and to the south, Little River Academy. And you can see we've got a little touch on Salado down in there. One of the things that when you're looking at this map, Belton's largest school within the BISD is in the city of Temple. Again, the theme of our metro was that the major driving force to this planning area is the fact that the city of Temple services it both with police, with fire, with jobs. We have another map that actually details the city limits for each one. This is mainly driven by the school system. But when you look at the city limits, it really is very clear that the driving force within that circle is the city of Temple and its ability to bring services. And when you look at each one of those school systems and driven by the cities, that they really won't be growing nearly as fast as the city of Temple in that map. So we broke it down into 5 basic areas to plan, which is the central core, which is around the loop. You got that northwest quadrant, which is mainly driven by our industrial park and expansion to the northwest. You got the northeast comes on down around and includes the Panda and Synergy Park. The south, which is mainly heading down 95 and I-14, taking a look at those areas of BISD that are still remaining over to the I-35. And then the west, which when you look at the west in that quadrant, it is considerably built out, both in Belton and in the city of Temple. So those are our 5 planning areas that we will be concentrating on. Within that map, we took all the 2025 Census Bureau populations and added them together. And it's interesting, this now begins showing you just a few slides that Travis has already begun putting together. But again, concentrating on the fact that over the past, as you can see, from 1950 to 2025, there's been a considerable amount of growth in the Austin area. And you can see that the trend has been to move north towards Temple, and Temple was growing at the same time. It's really based by our strategic location. There is a population boom happening in that area right now. It talks about the economy, and these are little snippets of what you're going to see in this report. And also what we really started to focus on is that if we're going to prepare for 2050, we need to begin to look at it and stick a number out there and say, what do you think it's going to be? That's where we came up with the 250 by 2050. Interesting as you look at those numbers and watching what is going on in the state up and down I-35, that the population growth is absolutely heading towards us. When you're looking at that, you can see the Solana Ranch is coming on, but they've got issues with water. You got Georgetown, who very much is growing right now, and they're having their water issues. So as you're moving to the north, your population is heading really towards Temple. That's what this is showing. Talk a lot about what is happening south of us. If you look at that bottom line, it's Wilco is the Williamson County. They got their Georgetown's the #1 fastest growing community in the United States. At 14%, you got number 3 is the fastest growing city, which is Leander at 10%. Number 7 in largest metro area in the country and growing. So when you take a look at those 3 stats and look at what Williamson County is doing to prepare for their continued growth, it's pretty evident that if you put all that together, that we are starting to grow. We took the population again on that population map and took the 2025 numbers, and the 2025 numbers puts it 156,000 people in that planning area. So we applied just some fun stuff. 2% growth is the state's average over the last 25 years, and that's the full state. The city of Temple, you can't, if you go look right now, you go online, look at any report you can find over the last 4 years, you can't find a report that doesn't say anything other than we're at 4% and growing fast. So if you look at the 4% growth model and stick yourself at 25, you're really at 415. We use the 250, right, which is the absolute like, if you don't do anything, let's all go to bed and let this world happen. 2% growth, you're at 250,000 in that planning area. More likely, you're gonna keep the trend that we've had for the last 4 to 5 years at a 4% growth. You look at the numbers that Williamson County and Georgetown in that area doing, they're closer to 4.95%, hitting 6 or 7. If that were to continue, just to take a good look at it, you know, we'd be sitting here at 669,000 in 25 years. It's obvious that the 250 is about as conservative you can get, but we need to be looking at what are we gonna do as a zone to prepare for that. And so this is the premise that we as a group came together believing that, okay, there's no question that you're gonna be somewhere between 250 and 600,000 people in the next 25 years. And let's just take that and make a look at what we can do to prepare for it so it doesn't roll over the top of us. It's just a little bit of a graphical look at that. Again, that center line is probably the most obvious that we'll be doing. I mean, you can't find any data that's going to do less. When you looked at the Zonda did a projection, one of the things that they did when they looked at all of their projections that we've had, they look at your city limits and they say, okay, within your city limits is how many people you're going to have. And we were looking at that and saying, okay, in our current structure, what we've been doing is doing voluntary annexations, and we're going to continue to move out like we did out to the west, what we're doing to the south. And so you really have to change your mindset and don't say, okay, how are we going to grow within our city limits? What's going to happen in the next 25 years if we hit 4% growth and you get this many people in that area? Our metro is going to get bigger. So we've really started using the term the Temple metro area rather than the Temple city limits. And that metro area is that planning map. And it's basically, you can see that currently the decisions that the city is already making is moving us outside those city limits and taking us into the next 10 years. So again, that metro area is really a little more outward looking as a design group, where in the past we were a little bit more inward looking. We said, look, we don't have our downtown needs work, you know, our school system needed work. We spent a lot of time over the last planning period looking at quality of place to make the city limits and what we had a better place. We're not going to stop doing that, but we are going to begin looking outward from the city limits and prepare ourselves for the 25-year growth that we see coming our way. Just little things that we're doing with this planning map. Spent some time working with Chief Randall's on the fire and looked at his all current fire stations, added the ones that he's going to be adding, and then 5 future. And so we spent a considerable amount of time with him and looking at what he saw. And so that's what this map shows. Again, you can zoom in on it. I don't have my little thing, I can zoom in each one, but to sort of show you what that can look like is when you take our industrial park area, you can see that you got your 2 future fire stations up there, and you can begin to look at it. They got a 1.5 mile radius, and he likes to have some overlap. So you can see he's overlapping from the current one in the industrial park. In that each map will do that, and they're all color coded so that as we are taking each one of the planning areas and then taking our parks and then even looking outside, that we can begin to make sure that we have the services, water, sewer, and a street structure. We're taking the time to look at overlaying the current thoroughfare plan on it and working as a work group to tweak that. And so to the north here, you have 1237, I believe that's what that is. And really just taking a look at the whole structure to see. So you'll be seeing maps like this for every quadrant, every planning area, and every one of our parks that are within that. And Brenda's asked us to be a little bit outward looking and not just concentrate on the zone projects itself. So as a team, you're all going to have to remember, just because we're looking at these areas more as citywide, not just zone, that doesn't mean what we're going to be doing is taking on every project in those areas. But again, Brenda's really asked that she got a good little working group that any area can we really focus in on what it's gonna look like for 2025, since we're from 2050 as much as we can, to help her to do some of the planning she's got, tying this together with our current hike and bike system, the current CPAC. That CPAC comprehensive plan that we did was actually done through the lens of COVID. In my opinion, it was literally done during COVID, but also with that lens, meaning the world was sort of upside down when we did that last one, comprehensive plan. So we're sort of taking that comprehensive plan and expanding our vision a little bit with a different lens, which is the fact that post-COVID, we went from a 2.5 to 3.5% growth up to 4.5 and 5, and the whole state has done that. And I just really think that because of that, we've tweaked what we think it's going to look like when we do that. Just a couple pictures. Travis is at least 80 pages into this project. I didn't want to bore you with half completed work and get too far out in front of our team, but just sort of showing you that we really are looking at keeping our quality of life the way it is, but going ahead and providing for the couple, and that's going to be that Temple Metro theme. And it's going to be looking at how do we actually prepare ourselves for that. Just a little special second page, to this deal is who the council's going to be and our TRZ committee. Just giving you a format picture, y'all here, nothing really that important. You can actually see, like on this, he's got the table of contents. He's repeated it 4 times so that he can have some room. But we're really beginning to look at, he's deep into his introduction, deep into the guiding principles, in securing 250 by 250, looking at all those economic development issues, and then looking at each sector. And so this is giving you a sense on the really depth for which this report will take us. And like chapter 1, it just gives you a chapter look at what each chapter page will look like at the beginning. We're not walking away from our guiding principles from early on, which was the economic prosperity, connectivity, public well-being, placemaking. We're going to stay hold to those principles. Rather being inward looking, we're going to make sure we can carry those principles to the whole planning area and make sure that we don't lose our focus as to the quality of place that we want Temple to be. And some of the thinking, that whole looking inward, that from the center to sort of the 4 quadrants of our city, I-35, Adams, I-14, you can sort of see. This is Travis's fun pictures when he's doodling for us to really come up, and he would bring these to us and sort of say, well, here's what I see you guys are saying, right? That we've got that core, we got that center city, we were focused on it. Now we're beginning to do this focus outside of that. That's what he's talking about on that. And really, that is a quick view of where we are today. It's an interesting thing is to transition yourself from getting your arms 100% around all of the projects we have going today and trying to visually complete those in your mind and try to get the next level. Okay, so 1 to 5 is the projects that we're voting on today and working on today. That 5 to 10, where are we heading? But in reality, we're saying, okay, we want to be prepared for 2050 when you have 450,000 here. What do you need for police? What do you need for fire? What do you need for water and sewer? What's your street structure look like? What are your educational systems going to look like? We've got 2 very large school systems. 2050, you're going to have 5. And we're going to be moving out to those systems. You take Belton. Belton is coming to somewhat of an end of their huge growth period. They still got some growth to go down I-35 to the south, but in real terms, their rapid growth is going to start dropping off, where you're going to see Troy and Little River Academy go the opposite direction. They're going to start speeding up and getting much bigger. And the driving force of those 2 systems growing will be the fact that the city is reaching out into those areas with all their infrastructure. That's the picture we've got in our mind. Now we're trying to fill in around the edges and make sure that the future boards will be able to have some sort of a blueprint as to how we're going to do it with the 400,000 people we're going to have in 2050. Any questions?
I think I said on the last master plan, and it is a different perspective that we're taking this one, which is good, and they always generally come up organically as you just start getting into all the meetings, and by the way, each one of those meetings is like an hour. And that's if John's not there. But the rock. That's not a rock. But but as you start going through all those, we always do those first, and you try to let the process guide you as opposed to guide the process. And so what came out of that, like John said, was just like each one of those is just they're all individually trying to figure out how they're gonna deal with the growth. And so I think as a community, we're in the rare position to be proactive in all of this. And I think all the communities on that map, Georgetown included, they're just reactive to all the growth. And so I think we're putting ourselves in a really good position to be successful long term. The other thing is Tracy and Melissa and Bob and I and Gary have all worked as a finance team to make sure that we could realistically, when we come up with our list of projects that we're doing right now, in each one of those quadrants, like, are they realistic? Can we actually do these? Can we actually pay for these? I think the answer is going to be, you'll see it probably in the next presentation, but a resounding yes. So it's not just, we talk about all the time of putting plans together, then actually following through with them. I think we're going to put a plan together that's going to be really good, but I think we're going to have a pathway to actually like follow through with doing all these things. So it's been really good. And you actually, I give John a hard time, but see John and Travis in their element, like really getting to the vision of this thing. And it's been a really good process.
One of the slides I didn't put in there because it would freak everybody out, and it's premature, was just our quick list. We did a quick list of every project we thought we could do. And it was real short. Brady constantly reminded us, well, that isn't the only list, is it? You brought it up a couple times. It's like, no, this is just so that we could start talking about them, and it added up to 1.5 billion. Right. And so, and that was, that sort of freaks you out when you look at that. And I didn't bring it because you got to have some order. I mean, you got to list them. And my concern is we haven't, as a group, gone through that list and begun prioritizing them and putting them on a list and putting them on a timeline. But it's fairly easy to get yourself to, $2.5 billion worth of projects. And that is really zone specific, with some projects that could be joint projects with the city, and has nothing to do with the city's budgeting process that they're going through on a 3 years. So you look at where we're heading now, it's pretty crazy, really.
And impressive. I mean, even with that, we can still pay for that. I think that there's a pathway to pay for all of that still. So
As long as we keep burning down in Austin and keeping those people off our backs, good job done. That's the scary part. Sorry.
No, great.
It's been under control.
Just if anybody has any questions. But I also want to comment the committee is really so dedicated and been serious about coming to all the meetings. And so you say, 45 hours where you can double or triple that. There's all the discussion time that we do outside of those presentations. And then we probably have, so well over 100 plus hours, and we probably have another, 50, 75 hours to go. Just start projects, prioritizing them, OPCs from KPA and their group, so we can, and so it's a labor of love.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys, for the time that we've spent, 4 or 5 of us here that we've spent on the zone over the last 20 or 25 years for the newer members, and those of you that are willing to spend your time and effort here. This is, I think, the 3rd one of these that we've done over the last few years, and we've completely built out the other 2 master plans that we've done. So this is not just dreaming and planning and visioning. It's reality, and it's a roadmap to where we're taking our community in the future. And the opportunity that's represented here with the comment that you were making regarding brand's effectiveness in Austin and that sort of thing, and keeping the viability of the reinvestment zone effective for the city of Temple is an enormous opportunity for our city, and has been for a long time, and it continues to be. It's going to continue to grow, and it's the visioning tool that you guys have taken the time, the effort, and the energy to put this forward and to bring in all of the partners around the community to get their vision and their master plans of where they're expecting to go and get everybody on the same page, really creates the visioning tool that this board uses to move forward with as we move forward. So congratulations and thanks for doing it. Appreciate it.
And one last comment, but the master plans for each one of these individual things, like that we voted on earlier, we're doing those so that they all flow into the main master plan that, it's not even master plans, we talk, it's more like a visioning document that, for where we're going, but those master plans come out of some of these things so that it's all cohesive and it's not, you know, nothing that's left unturned.
The one thing you realize in the community, when you listen to broad perspective of community, everyone's talking about what's going on in their world. And it really does help you weave together, you know, where we are as a community and the growth that's going on. And then you realize that we've got just a really great community of people that are doing great stuff and organizations in their wheelhouse. So. And the other thing you realize, we have a really well-run city. When you listen to each of the departments that come in and speak, you know, they understand what the mission is, their goals, are, you know, just great people, great leaders in each of those departments.
When you have 50 hours of meetings into it, it's hard for us to come and give you the 15-minute snapshot of all that was said and done during those periods, but it is all. You know, you're in awe when you get done and looking at what's happening. So hopefully we can capture that in this document. And Travis has made every meeting, and when you read it right now, he has captured all the meetings, and it'll be a lot easier for you to see it when you got your 250-page document that you'll be testing on. So.
Yeah, thank you to WKPA for doing each of the meetings and helping direct us and guide us along the way through. So. Now, we got a couple more items, but I'm going to tell the master plan group after we conclude this meeting, I need to get all of it huddled up so we can schedule our next meetings out. So we don't so. Anyway, okay, next item is item number 8, review project update from Hub Economic Development Corporation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're seeing some really healthy interest in our community, continue to do so as we have over the last 5 or 6 years. If you haven't been out off of Windland Road and Distribution Drive to take a look at the Sayah building, it really is considerable. The walls, the walls are now coming up, and it looks like a really, really good facility. If you haven't seen some of the renderings, I mean, you can tell those guys are from the Michigan area. You know, it's like hot rod red on the front with the Sayah logo and that carbon black look, but it's going to be a really world-class facility. They entertain probably about 20 to 25 guests into our community here about 2 weeks ago. They had a hard hat tour, invited some community members out there. They're going to try to do that as periodically as the project continues to go under construction. The next one will be in the fall time period. But talking to some of their customers, talking to folks who will be their suppliers as well. And as you visit individually with some of those customers, I know some of you were invited to that, and those customers are saying, you know, we're going to buy every bit of product that they can put out of that facility. It really is a world-class facility. One of the things that came up, one of the Korean gentlemen who came in was sitting next to me in the PowerPoint presentation they were giving on all the technology they were putting in, and he kept on saying, you know, only in Temple. This technology in the aerospace and aviation industry is going to be a place. And so I found my new marketing message, only in Temple. We're going to do some storytelling around that, but it really is coming along well. That initial project for the zone to remember, to be reminded, $110 million investment was announced. I think it's really climbed to about 150 million is what that will be in total investment. And they give every indication that phase 2 is right around the corner. These contracts are completed and finalizing their negotiations. So we'll stay tuned to that over the next few years. We have additional industries that are currently in our industrial park that are seeing opportunities for growth in that general area. And so whether it be food and beverage, whether it be manufacturing, whether it be back office support services, IT companies, All of those are projects that we're working right now that could be significant investment opportunities. You talk about the zone and the power of the zone. The reason why we have those opportunities is because of our preparedness. You know, there's a consultant that told me one time, prepared communities win. That's something we do very well. So thanks to this board for the energy and effort you put in all this preparation, Mr. Chair, Project Committee Chair, Finance Chair, and the rest of you in getting us prepared for the next 20, 25 years. As we look at the zone itself, you know, obviously our goal is to drive as much investment into the zone. So we have been working with a project chair to take a look at what we've been purchasing up north and making sure that we know where that zone line is, trying to fit some projects that are smaller in nature. I say smaller in footprint, but significant in investment. To give you an idea of where some of these investments are going, that some of these projects need 10 acres, but they're looking about $120, $140 million of investment on 10 acres. So when you look at that value per square foot into the zone is really, really considerable. So we're working it across the board. Again, expansions, new industries are coming in as well. So as we prepare, just for this board to understand, as we prepare for the next 3 to 5 years, we had a target industry analysis done around 4 years ago. And so we felt like it was time to refresh in that because a lot in the world has changed. A lot of opportunities have availed themselves really just over the last 3 or 4 months. I was on the virtual call last night with a group out of Korea as we prepare, Mayor, myself, to go over there here in the next few weeks. Was with a group that actually works with Korean companies. They said, listen, we thought we knew what the opportunity out of Korea was, you know, going into the end of last year. And now with some of the policies and things that are going on, you know, that opportunity looks like it's widened quite a bit. And so we're going to be looking to take advantage of that. All that to say that target industry analysis report is going to be very important to us as we architect our next 3 to 5 years of where our target industries are, targeting higher wage jobs, growth industries, and our location quotient, our suitability for those industries as well. So we have that underway. The Temple EDC board heard kind of maybe the first 30%, 25% view of that from a labor market analysis. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is how many folks that live here that are working in Austin, over 50 miles away, right? So going up past Waco, up down to Austin, and then again, how many folks are on the outside coming into our market to work as well. So those numbers are quite significant and really justifies what we heard today as we look at the Temple, Texas metro area and the areas, planning areas that we talked about, not only a market that's in and of itself, that's taking care of itself as an economy, but really becoming a suburban community to a large metropolitan area. So we have both happening, a healthy market and economy and mature economy that's growing on its own. And then we have an influx of people that are also living in our area that may also be going down to other economies. So further strengthening that connectivity to us, to our partners to the south. So that's where we are in our economic development update. We look forward over the next few months. I think as we move into September, October timeframe, we hope that some of these coconuts will shake loose from the tree and we'll get to feast on that food.
Did Sarah indicate like whether tariffs were good, bad, indifferent, and it speeds up their phase 2 or slows it down?
For them, they would say indifferent, but for the fact that it made them look really, really smart because they were planning that investment and obviously made the announcement of that investment before some of those policies came forward. But it just further entrenched themselves in the leadership, the thought that U.S. is where they need to be. So I think as we look, the question really will be, Tyler, I think as you look even past phase 2, and is there a potential phase 3 out there somewhere, right? Because if our policies continue in the way that they've been going, there may be opportunities for beyond phase 2.
If I can tag on to your say, it's amazing to learn more and more about the advanced manufacturing process that they actually have using mostly robotics. And so you're thinking about a steel foundry and all that in your mind, you're looking at the old steel, and this is really a high-tech robotics operation. We had the opportunity to take some of the people around that were in to go through Temple College, to go through TISD and BISD's CAT programs, and they are really impressed and are looking forward to upscaling the robotics classes in all of them, where Temple College has its own those little, whatever you call them, the workspaces, clean rooms, and And then talking to Michael and them, they look forward to getting a higher tech robotics inside of Temple College so that we can have the workers to actually run what that is. And so yeah, it takes a lot smarter people to run that equipment and to understand that equipment, which is a higher paying job than someone who is just burning steel. And so it's a big difference.
So thank you for teasing that out. I almost forgot about it. It's a great point. In their presentation, they had talked about, I believe, industry-wide in the aerospace and aviation industry for what they do. There's about 6 robots industry-wide present in what they do. They will have 14 robots in the Temple facility alone. So to your point.
And a lot of people keep worrying about bringing the manufacturing back into the United States so that we don't have enough people. Well, the people are no steel and pick stuff up, just like in the car industry. You've been up in Detroit, there's the people that it takes to run them are very different than what the labor of past used to be. And so it doesn't take as many people. It just takes smarter people with a higher education and skill level, which is what really brings your average salary up, and which is really one of our targets as you're looking at 2050 and trying to go, you want a higher paying job because it will really affect the quality of place here. But quality of place will also affect that person to come into our community. All of that. I mean, it's really important for us to get out in front of our community to present that higher level of employee a place to live. And so it's really important for us to understand who you're bringing into our community with Meta and say, and even East Penn and some of them, it's a higher level advanced technologies, not just box carriers.
Yeah, absolutely. And at one point, see, this is what John does. He pulls me into the conversation, and we're here another hour. But you know, he made a great point. You know, as he talked about quality of place, I didn't want to miss that part as well. So I mentioned the target industry analysis that we're conducting. The group that did it last time, Newmark, did such a fantastic job at performing that study. And you go down the list of those target industries, and they said we should be chasing. We've had projects in every single one of those target industries announced, significant investment. But nevertheless, 2 of the members of the past team that came in last time. Sometimes it's hard for us when we're driving up and down Adams and, you know, around the loop and down 31st Street to really see the changes in our community day to day, because it's just happening as we go. But for that group, for the majority of those 2 people who hadn't been back to Temple in 4 years, when they came back today and they see the monument signing on landscaping on 35 there, they can come into Central and on to Adams. As they look at downtown and the changes we saw here, they were just amazed. They said it was like a new community that they were in. So again, all because of the work of the city and the board here.
We always got to thank our council who takes bullets for, if there is 30% of these people out there, you guys, going to complain no matter what you do. And it's real important. When you're talking about bringing in another 200,000 people in the next 20 years, right? There's going to be that 30% of the current people that are saying, why are we spending dollars on making our community better? And, you know, God's blessings that you have councils that are willing to take the tough votes, take the bullets for the decisions we've made out here to make our community better. And I mean, we got to continually praise the fact that they're taking a lot of bullets every once in a while for doing the right thing. So.
Well said.
That's my turn to say something. We understand the process, right? Council understands the process. Council understands where we're going with this community. All the things y'all have said, council has a deep understanding of that. That's why the bullets don't really hurt, because we know there's that 30% out there that it doesn't. This is a country way to say it, but I had a football coach in high school that said you guys would complain if you were hung with a new rope. Right. So people are going to complain because they're going to complain. That's not something council worries about. So, and we're about to appoint a new District 3 person, and that's the kind of person we're looking for. Someone just like the rest of us that understands where this community is going. So, and one thing I thought was interesting in that labor shed report that was given was, John, sort of to your point, was the number of people that are driving outside of Temple. And they specifically mentioned the doctors how many of them are living, because maybe their spouse wants to live in a Georgetown or a Round Rock or something like that. So that goes toward, I think, also being able to attract that higher level laborer, so to speak, right, that higher dollar that has more disposable income. That's why it's important that we continue to build the amenities that we do. Because again, that 30% of the people that are always complaining, they're always, I guess they want to live in a concrete jungle. I don't know what they want, but you're not going to attract the right kind of people if you don't have the right kind of community. So that's, again, kudos to this board and the willingness to spend those hours to put something together. And the council supports those decisions 99% of the time.
I don't know what your numbers were. The two numbers that I've seen twice so far is that 33,000 are coming in and 22 are going out. Do you have numbers?
34%, I think, were about 26% coming in. 24,
But
26%.
people wise, that's what I was trying to decide. Would that be that number?
I would have to
Yeah.
go back. I can't say specifically.
I just was recently, I think I sent some stuff to you. I was trying to look at that data and it looked like we had 30,000 that are coming into our community and 22 going out. And so you got a net gain coming in, but what's really important is the 22 going out, we can capture. I mean, that's, keep those people here. Make that number be 50,000 coming in, which is what it's gonna be when you're 400.
The EDC has had a focus for a number of years, over the last 6 or 8 years on high-wage jobs. And the industries that you're bringing in and focus and target on that should be working.
Thank you. And that's thanks to the board here, and some of you are represented here. Steve sat on that board for a number of years. Tyler Stay does, Bob, you do, city manager, Brand, and mayor, Councilman Walker. Thank you all for giving us that direction.
Any other question for move to item 9, receive a project update from the city manager?
Me.
Been very, very busy the last few weeks and months.
Yes, so Monday is signed up, so we're very excited to see the end of the legislative session on Monday. We've already passed a lot of major milestones though, so yesterday at midnight was the deadline for if the bill hadn't been heard, hadn't had a first reading. If it hasn't had a first reading, it is completely dead at this point. So we definitely know what we're dealing with and we're down to the last few hours. So I think overall, we've been very successful in our advocacy efforts. We have seen no legislation that will be detrimental to reinvestment zones advance. So that's one of our highest priorities. So we were very pleased to be able to provide that update today. We've also seen no legislation that would be harmful to our economic development efforts in terms of Chapter 380 economic development agreements or Chapter 312 tax abatement agreements. There's been no legislation that would restrict or harm our ability to use those important tools to be able to attract investment and close deals. So there was some legislation filed that we were able to stave that off. And so we're very pleased with that. Other important updates, our ability to continue to advocate and use resources will remain. So that's also a really positive update because while we can get after individual bills in a session, if our hands are tied for future sessions, that's obviously very problematic. So we're pleased that we will retain all of the ability to use advocates and consultants and lobbyists to help us with our efforts and truly to use staff time as well, which in some proposals is restricted for so that, for example, someone like me couldn't even speak with our delegation on bills because my salary comes from taxpayer funded resources. So that is a positive update. The major attack that advanced pretty aggressively this session was on our ability to use bonds to fund capital projects. There was a bill, House Bill 15, which many of you engaged in that process, and I'm deeply grateful for that. We really engaged our business and community leaders, and that was very successful. We were able to hold off House Bill 15 in the committee. What House Bill 15 would have done would basically end our ability to use bonds and debt portfolio to manage capital projects going forward. It would have put an arbitrary cap on the amount of debt service that could be managed by a community each year. And it was tied to just a single source of revenue. So an arbitrary number on an arbitrary source of revenue. And it had no outs for if voters approved that bond package, if those bonds were funded by sources other than tax, supported by revenues or fees. There was no out for those kinds of things. It would have restricted our ability to refund debt, which is a very powerful option that we have right now to save money and to manage our needs. So we were able to stop that bill in committee. There were parts of the bill that attempted to attach themselves to other legislation. We're also able to stop that from occurring. So that is a really good report on that issue. Some of the
Yes, Mayor.
yes.
What happened with, and I assume that it died with the bill that was going to require municipalities to pay for utilities that were in the right of way?
Yes, it did not go through. Yes.
That also would have been devastating, I think, to many capital projects as we expand.
It would have been more
I mean,
expensive
so
for sure.
expensive
Yeah,
to-
right. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And then if you can't bond it.
Yeah, there's over 11,000 bills. So there's plenty of bad bills. These are just the worst of the worst. Though all of it is not negative, there were some bills that we worked to advance. We had a bill that we had previously worked with Representative Shine to provide the opportunity for us to basically, there's a barrier right now, a literal and figurative barrier in state law. Well, there used to be, where if a portion of your community was adjacent or contiguous to the city limits and that property owner wanted to come into the city, but the only thing that separated their boundary from the current city limits was a railroad line. That railroad line essentially blocked their ability to come into the city because it was considered non-contiguous under the state law that existed. So we had previously worked with Representative Shine to basically, get that law changed so that you could consider an area contiguous if the only thing making it non-contiguous was a railroad line for purposes of voluntary annexation. That bill in the last session was vetoed by the governor in retaliation for some unrelated votes. We were able to get our delegation to refile that this session, and Senator Flores and Representative Hicklin carried that bill. It became law yesterday. It was not signed by the governor, but he declined to veto it. So that counts just the same. So that was a successful area. And then the other bill that we are working to advance is a bill related to our aquifer storage and recovery system, which I know I've talked with many of you about that program. So just as a reminder, that the city of Temple right now is fairly exclusively tied to surface water as our source of water. And we have great water resources through Lake Belton and the river. But as we grow and as we have more water needs, and we also have the need to diversify our water source so that we're not 100% reliant on what can be a drought affected water source being surface water. So if the water's not in the lake, that's definitely a problem. So we are working to diversify into groundwater resources. And one of those groundwater strategies is to use the natural aquifer to store water in times of excess and then pull that out in times of peak needs or drought conditions. Right now, we've drilled our first well in the Synergy Park area. We've designed that well to be both a production well to traditionally take water from the aquifer, the Trinity, but we've also designed it to be what's called an injection well so that we can put water back into the aquifer again, store it, and pull it up in times of later use. The very traditional way to the source of water for that type of project is treated surface water. So you take surface water, for example, in our case, from Lake Belton. Maybe it's a day like, a day in March when people aren't using a ton of water. And so you continue to treat at the level that your production accounts for your peak needs, but instead of it being used dynamically in the system at that moment, we're able to store it in the ground. And then on a hot summer day, when everybody needs that water, we can shave off that peak by pulling water out of the aquifer. So we're designing our system to be able to do that. We should be able to store a really significant amount of surface water. But the very innovative thing that we are seeking to do is to take purified, reclaimed water and also be able to use that in our aquifer to store and recover later. That will provide an additive to our existing water rights. So whereas the treated surface water will come out of our existing allocation, we're just going to balance when it's available and when we need it, which is important and a very meaningful strategy. The ability to use purified reclaimed water will be additive to our total water rights to the extent of 10 to 15% addition of what we currently have, which is really meaningful as we manage our industrial water needs that this group and Adrian and his team are working hard to bring to our community. We needed a change in state law in order for us to be able to do that because we are cutting edge on this front. We had a bill that was authored by Senator Flores. It received unanimous support from the Senate committee and the Senate as a whole. It received unanimous support from the House. Buckley picked it up when we got it over into the House, and it was scheduled for the House floor on Sunday. One thing, if you're following the legislative session at all, you know that obviously Democrats have a minority voting position, but one thing that they are doing to manage bills that to manage the process and manage bills they oppose, they don't have the votes necessarily to kill a bill, but they have the ability to use rules and procedures to slow things down so that bills die just because of timing. So our bill, which is Senate Bill 2885, is not opposed. It has the support of, it has bipartisan support. We had, for example, the Sierra Clubs support our bill and register in favor of our bill. So there's no attack on our bill. But what's happening is just because of other bills and the ability and the strategy of slowing things down so they die if you don't have the votes to kill them. Everything is just taking a really long time. So time is working against us. So our bill was scheduled to be heard on Sunday. It was on the 12th page of the agenda. They got to the 4th page of the agenda. It carried over to Monday. And the House, again, they met till after midnight, but they still only got to around the 4th page of the agenda. We moved up a little bit, but not enough to get anywhere close. So yesterday was the last day that our bill could be heard. If you haven't, again, if the bill isn't heard, at least for the first time, or passed on the first for the first time, it's dead as of midnight last night. We didn't feel like our bill was it was still low enough that we didn't feel like it was gonna make it across the finish line just because they weren't gonna get it in time. So we did a Hail Mary, we found a germane bill, we drafted an amendment, we got the author of that bill and the House sponsor to agree to the amendment. Buckley presented the amendment. The amendment was passed with one vote against it, and then the whole bill was passed unanimously. So today it's heard for the third and final time, assuming that is successful, which I'm optimistic that it will be. Then it will go to the governor for either signature or just, again, if he doesn't sign, as long as he doesn't veto. So that would be a very significant win for our community, and one that I know you all have, as the business community, have been great supporters of. So that is my report. We will keep you in the loop. We only have a few days left, and really we only have today. So
Is there any talk of special session?
as long as they get the school finance bill, then I don't think there'll be a special session. And what I've heard is that I think they're going to get it done.
Thank you for keeping us all informed over the last weeks and months, and marshaling forces to business community to be aware of all this. So great job.
Thank you. It's been fun, and I'm ready for Monday.
Tag on, of course, tag on, it's been really important. She has the one well that she fought for, Brandon, the city, to make sure that we have that well available.
we've worked hand in hand with Adrian and the city staff to making sure we've located 4 others on Synergy Park and beginning to work with KPA and the water consultant to make sure we make a grid system similar to like oil wells do, to making sure we can take care of all 4 wells, not just have that single well. So this legislation is just huge. And by being kept in the loop, we've kept Adrian in the loop, KPA's in the loop, and the project group, making sure that if we go sell land, that we don't have to go back and buy our own land back for these wells. So
We had a workshop, Mr. Keela, last week, and those 4 wells were based on our current water availability. So we may actually see advancing a proposal where we have even a few more, just to make sure that over the 20, 30, 40 year, 2050 for sure, that we're not just looking at what's available today, but we're looking at both the reclaimed water that is available from at least the known expansion points of the 2 treatment plants that will serve that, as well as the enhanced infrastructure. Because if you remember, of course you remember, but all of the infrastructure that the zone and the city is currently working on related to the South Temple Community Transmission Main, which will bring, millions of gallons more a day of treated surface water to that area. Again, the reclaimed water is an element, but we can also use treated surface water. So we want to make sure that we take both of those numbers, remove any reasonable, make sure we're looking at the picture for what can be 10, 20, 30 years from now. Make sure we get enough wells reserved for that. And then we're going to submit a permit for the kind of the big picture. And then if I'd much rather be in a position where we've reserved a little bit of land for a well we may not need versus have the ability to add a couple million gallons of water resources, but didn't get that little postage stamp that we needed.
that update you gave us on your water plant, I've repeated it most likely incorrectly. Are we shutting the old system 100% down as you're redoing it and just using your other plant?
Right.
That's an incredible thought. That I know I've told you that, Tyler and others, that the old water plant that fed our community, the city is able to take it offline and to rebuild it, bring it up to a new spec, working with KPA and that, and using the current filtration system to run the whole community. Where other communities, if you look at what they're doing, they're just trying to keep up with demand. We were able to take that off system and fix it and still feed our community water, which is just an incredible thought.
And we won't always be able to do that. So this is the time to make sure that that conventional plant is looking its best, because we have just shy of 30 million gallons of treatment capacity in the conventional plant. We have another 22 almost in the membrane plant. And, most days 22 is fine. As we grow, we'll need more capacity, which is why we built that capacity at those 2 plants. So
Those are the numbers I use, and I don't know if you just gotta take that in, that you're taking. You've got 52 and you can run off 22 and you've got 30 sitting in your back pocket when you're talking about trying to double the population, right? When you can take half your water and take it offline right now, for how long will it be offline, do you think?
I think we'll do it in, we'll break down the pieces so that no one project will extend into summer peak. So, I think it won't be one long stretch of down. We'll break it up so that we'll do the clarifiers and then we'll come back and do another portion. And so it'll be a series of probably a few years, different segments, but not 2 or 3 years, continuous.
Still an incredible thought when you're talking about growth, when you have that, you saw that they just passed the bonds, and so did Belton on the wastewater plant, the VRA for capacity. So you're starting to look at Austin, trying to figure out how to handle its growth, and what they're looking at us to the north, and it's because of that advancement on water and sewer plants and
And
street
this
structure. and
ASR
that
thing, I
we
mean,
have.
has a lot to do with that, because you think about 34, 35 million gallon peak day, but how many days are at 20? And
Yeah.
you can take that excess water that you're not needing, put it in a natural storage reservoir that's, pretty much immune to, our area is just, I could go on for a long time on that, so, but it's a great geographic or geological formation. It keeps the water tight. It's not gonna shift too much on us. And it's not, no evaporation like you'll have, in a surface reservoir. And we'll be able to store that water and shave off peaks. So, because peak matters just as much as the overall use, because you can only, your water is only as good as the maximum day that you need it. So that doesn't mean, if you only use maximum day, 50 times out of the year, you're still restricted of the overall water that you can use, because that max day is climbing. So we can shave off that max day use with this ASR system. And the reclaimed water, which is what the legislative is additive to that, and adds a water right that we don't currently have right now. And again, 10 to 15% increase in our water rights, which, that's 10,000 acre feet. They've set up whole, for example, the Hayes County Alliance, which is the water model that the Central Texas Water Alliance has modeled themselves after. They've set up this whole system to go get 10,000 acre feet, paying billions of dollars in infrastructure. And it took them, they had to partner 3 or 4 communities together to get that done. We're going to have that same water available to us because of our plan here in reuse. And so I can't overstate the significance of what we're going to be able to accomplish with this.
And
program.
that's cheap water. Wait, that's surface water that we're taking versus the cost of surface water versus underground water is mad.
Going in the river.
Yeah, I mean,
Going into our underground loop.
I guess one more thing too.
Well,
there's-
in some ways it's free, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's free because you've already paid for it. If you paid for it when you used it the first time, now what we're doing is we're cleaning it, purifying it, and we're going to use it again, and we don't have to pay. I mean, you had to clean it anyways.
But I think that to my point earlier, that's like a difference of we're being proactive versus other ones being reactive, and it's literally saving us billions of dollars. So good job.
It's what,
And making it available now
Right.
versus
that is the
however,
right,
however long from now.
You take Solana Ranch right down there, 30,000, they're expecting 15 to 25,000 people. And you look at that plant, it's major, but they're literally stuck in the mud right now. For one thing, they gotta get their water rights. And I mean, they're not gonna kick that subdivision off until they get 2,200 permits, some number like that is whatever. Hearing it off the wall on that, but
Yeah.
it's, they don't have it. I mean, they're getting it, but even when it takes time to pipe it from East Texas over to Temple, we don't, we've got it underground, so really kudos to getting that ASR approved, unbelievable, really.
I was pretty happy last night. So one more day.
General question, and I'm gonna address this to you because you're standing there, but somebody else may know the answer. So we right now are totally dependent on surface. We're moving to well water, we're moving to ASR. So in effect, we could have 3 sources of water. I'd be interested to know how, in this general area, what communities are, not necessarily what communities, but the number of communities that are reliant solely on surface water. Are many communities reliant on well water versus surface water? I would just be really interested to know sort of the mix of what different communities in the Central Texas area, what their sources of water are. Because it seems like, again, we'll have at least 2 sources. If you count ASR, that's 3. That's pretty significant, and that is safeguarding the future of our community.
I think that WCID #1, which is the water supplier for Colleen, Fort Cab, Belton.
Yeah,
Market
just about
Heights.
everybody else.
Where's Armstrong with things?
I think that they are mostly, surface water.
Yeah.
The smaller water supply corporations like Pendleton, Blue Bonnet, the other WCDs, you know, I think that, well, some of them get their water from us. So if they don't get their water from us, then I think they're primarily well water,
So Georgetown,
groundwater.
right, we talked about pumping from Belton to Stillhouse to Georgetown. Is Georgetown, Round Rock area, are they solely, maybe this might be something you guys would know, are they all surface water? Do they have wells?
They use
Well,
groundwater as well.
groundwater, and they use reclaim for irrigation.
Would you say that the majority of their water is surface or wells?
Majority is surface, like Georgetown, but they also have a coalition project to go into the Carrizo.
They're
They do
working on
have
a lot.
right to some of the water in Belton, we learned. I read that Georgetown had actually bought some of the water rights out of the Lake Belts, correct?
Yeah, so we have, I don't know the exact percentage, but when the lake was originally built, the city of Temple bought 22% of the storage rights in that reservoir. It was deepened, you know, at some point, and so that 22% is no longer accurate, and I don't have that other percentage off the top of my head, but essentially 20,000 acre feet of the water that's in Lake Belton belongs to the city of Temple, not because we buy it from BRA, Brazos River Authority, through system water rate contracts, but because when the lake was developed, we bought storage rights. We bought a portion of the reservoir.
They call that senior rights, right?
Well, senior rights is more about how long you had the date of certification or adjudication of your water rights. Like, so for example, for us, we have 12,500 acre feet of what's called run of the river rights. Essentially, we had put our straw in the river in 1915 is the date that we, the court has recognized us as having those water rights dating back to. So those are amongst the most senior water rights in Texas. So anybody who got their water rights after 1915 is junior to us. Anybody who got them before 1915, and they're downstream of us, they could say, hey, you have to stop using water because we have older water rights than you do. I don't know of anyone who has older water rights than we do. Dow has old water rights, but we are older than them in that 12,500 acre feet. The next 20,000 acre feet, 18.5 drought year, 20,000 wet year acre feet is that storage rights in Lake Belton. So that's when we purchased part of the reservoir. And then the remainder of our 40,000 acre feet of water rights. So I think, 9,000 acre feet and then maybe 32 or 3,500 acre feet. Those are two what's called system rate contracts. And that is a contract with DRA. And it's basically, this is not precise, but it's more like renting the water. You pay for it annually. They set an annual rate that you pay per acre foot. And that is my understanding of what Georgetown has purchased some system water so that BRA manages in their system, not per se out of Lake Belton specifically, but they have said, and I don't know the number of acre feet, but let's just say they have 10,000 acre feet of water from Brazos River Authority. Brazos River Authority then as a system manages their water, and they have the ability to move the water to different reservoirs to meet the needs of their community. So the 20,000 and the 9,000 and 3,500 acre feet that we have a system rate, that's not necessarily, we get it out of Lake Belton because our intake point is after the dam. So ours is coming from Lake Belton, but the obligation of BRA is to provide it within the system. BRA has the rest of the water that we don't have in Lake Belton. So they have the ability to move that throughout their system as they see fit to meet the obligations of system water rate contracts. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but.
Yes,
Okay.
which is also just helps us when you read in the paper that somebody's stealing our water, it's really, they're not. That's what BRA told us when they also were at our meeting, which you learned a lot. Water is a big thing. I mean, that's for Adrian, that you take the other areas of the state, there's some people really having difficulties, and that's why I think we got a target on our back as the communities, because we do have water. And we can produce it, and we can actually take care of it on the back end. So when you do that, that's why that 2050 at 400,000 is a crazy number. That's a lot of cars to sell.
A lot of houses to be built.
Yeah.
A lot of loads to be made. Thank you so much. Excellent.
Great.
Okay, our next meeting will be June 25th. Anybody have anything else?